interesting. I totally understand the over pathologizing and maybe not using labels. But then at the same time, I think about it from the perspective of like, if you're dating an alcoholic or something, and how it is important to understand and learn about the disease if you're in a
Mhm.
relationship with somebody, especially from the perspective of like having like false hope on how easy it is to get sober or how easy it is to change. And so do you feel like any of that is important from the perspective of dating somebody with a personality disorder?
Yeah, that's a good point. Personality disorders are a lot harder to comprehend than an alcohol use
Alcoholism.
disorder, but
Mhm.
not that alcoholism is super easy to know. But what I would say is that instead of a particular label, I would put your partner to the test, which
Mm.
doesn't sound great, but of like, is there any, if I set up the situation perfectly, so say I'm in the relationship with someone that I suspect has some personality disorder, some rigidity, which is another kind of term. I would say like rigidity of perspective, I think is one way to put
Mm.
it. Because personality disorders, the hallmark is they perceive things differently and thus they feel things differently, thus they act differently. It's all based on the filter they see everything through. Or for me, if I'm a layperson, I would, because a lot of times when you're trying to convince your partner of something, it's in the midst of a fight and there's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of, so I'd wait until everything was calm and then I would go to them and say, hey, and I would maybe try to do something really minimally threatening. I don't know, something like, hey, can we just do I'm really sorry, but can we just do like a little exercise where maybe even this is even over text or something? It's like, I'm going to identify one thing that I have done bad in this relationship over this past year, and then, and I'll apologize for it. And I want you to do something, even if it's just
Mm.
small, whatever it is, just the tiniest little thing. And I'll start. And then you say, last week I was mean to you because when you did this, I just blasted you or I was short with you, whatever. And you don't have any excuses. You just say, it's on me. End of story. I was wrong. And then what does your partner do? Because a non-personality disordered partner is more likely to be able to respond to that. They might get a little weary, like what's going on there, especially if it's brand new. But someone with a personality disorder, it's going to be really hard for them. Depending on the personality disorder, it's going to be really hard for them to do that. And that's not a perfect litmus test, but at least for yourself, whether or not the person has a personality disorder, that's a great test to see if you're in a situation that is workable or not. Because if you can't, I don't know if it's okay to swear, if you can't
Yes,
fucking
fuck yes.
identify one thing in this past year that you
Mm.
did that was wrong and apologize, even if it was this tiny little thing, like you asked me to take out the garbage and I waited a lot. Like if you can't think of a single thing, something's wrong.
Let's say they identify something, but it comes with a but.
That could be this, the fact that they came up with something is good, and they might just be used to doing that. So I would give that a second chance. I'd be like, I might even start the thing of like, no buts. Let me do it again. I
Mm.
did this thing to you, and I have buts in my head, but I'm not gonna say it because I feel like that diminishes what I'm
Mm.
trying to get across, which is that I'm sorry that I did that or recognizing that I did that. So could you do it again without that? And
Mm.
I might even throw in like if I'm really making a suggestion to the general public right now, I would say throw in the caveat of this isn't a precursor to divorce. There's no stakes here. And if you do it wrong in my mind, I don't know. I just had this thought. I just thought it'd be interesting to see how we do with this. I saw a TikTok about it or something. And or I was listening to a podcast about it. And low stakes. Some people under stakes will freak out. And
Mm.
so is that a evidence of a personality disorder? Not necessarily. At the very least, it's evidence that because all things stem from that ability to recognize that you have done something wrong and to be able to
Mm.
take responsibility and state it.
Yep.
And I think that a lot of people have partners that seemingly can't do that and they're just labeling narcissistic when they're not narcissistic.
Mm. Well, is it always indicative of some sort of mental? issue, or is it just a lack of being able to communicate and not learning how to communicate properly, a lack of self-awareness?
Yeah, all the above. It could be a variety of things. It could also just be their mood or the way you delivered it or something. But I wish that people would talk more about this fundamental, which is
Mm.
just universal. Everyone understands the function of
Being able
each
to.
person being able to
Mhm.
say, I did this bad thing to you, however small, or I
Mhm.
did this big bad thing to you. And I have my excuses, but I'm not going to say it. Everyone understands that's important. And you don't
Mm.
need a label. We don't, and it could mean something. It might not mean who, but without that, then one, your relationship isn't going to function well. Two, it's going to feel really shitty over time, especially if you're the one apologizing, you're the one saying, I'm sorry, and you're getting none of that
Nothing
back.
back.